Good morning to you. These fires north, they're a disturbing reminder of the fires in our own neighborhood just not even a full year ago. And I was reflecting on what we learned during those fires and are learning now. And I think one of the most important things is this, that ordinary people are capable of extraordinary acts of courage and kindness. And I think we also learned that we were able to help our own community because so many people all across our nation made financial contributions to us so that we could do that. So we're going to be paying attention to how we in turn can offer help. Reverend Tara let me know, but she has a connection up there in Reading, that our Center for Spiritual Living in Reading is okay right now, and we're going to talk to them to see how we can help. But the other thing we learned is that right in the beginning, we didn't know immediately what we needed. In fact, the offers of help came faster than we could process what to do with it, so we're going to be mindful about that. And we also learned that even after the fires were contained, the recovery process isn't something that just happens overnight. In fact, we're not fully recovered, so it's quite traumatizing for us. So we're paying attention, and I will let you know how it is that we can participate to help others in the same way that we have been helped. In times of difficulty, community is very, very important. It's a source of strength. So I invite you to take a moment to look around and welcome everybody around you to the Center for Spiritual Living. Our topic this morning comes from the book Living the Science of Mind by Dr. Ernest Holmes. It's the book that we're using as our anchor book through the whole year as we celebrate 100 years of our teaching. And this month we're focusing on revealing wholeness with this chapter entitled You Are a Spiritual and Mental Broadcasting Station. And here's what Dr. Holmes writes. Did you ever stop to think that you are a spiritual and mental broadcasting station? And that messages are going out from you in all directions, perhaps even while you are asleep. Messages which have an influence on your environment and the people around you. Well, did you ever think of that? What a thought. Who you are is broadcasting a message. Who you are is influencing your environment and your community. And did you ever pause to think, what is the message that I'm broadcasting? Well, it depends, I guess, on what it is that you're tuned into, doesn't it? On a very basic level, if I tune into the idea that this is an unsafe world and everything is working against me and I've got to watch out and it's difficult, certain body functions increase to match that fear narrative. Stress and blood pressure, chemical reactions. That's what we've been talking about in these free 1-hour classes Wednesday night. We're using the book Cure, The Journey of Science of Mind over Body. It's absolutely wonderful. It explores new research about the body-mind connection and what we can do spiritually to cooperate with our body's well-being. On the other side of that, if I have the idea that this world is a safe place and things are working in collaboration with each other on behalf of us, and I'm surrounded by kind of elegant rightness of action, it's going to change the way my body responds. I'm going to be calmer, breathing more easily, maybe even expecting things to turn out well. Now, Dr. Holmes, in this beautiful chapter, he says that wholeness is a mental as well as a physical state. It's not either or, it's both and. And spirituality is about healing people's mentalities. I love that word. He uses mentalities. You know, what's my mentality? Because I got to heal it. It means my consciousness, right? It means the sum total of everything that's in my mind. Oh, that's going to take some work. But I do understand the idea, because I get that when my mind is in the right place, my world appears better to me. When my mind is in the right place, I show up better for my world. Oh, when my mind is in the right place, I am in the right place, no matter what is going on. You know, I had a very real experience of this in Costa Rica about 10 years ago when I went there for the very first time, because I faced one of my fears. I don't mind telling you, I'm afraid of heights. I don't like them. So in Costa Rica, I rappelled down 4 waterfalls and 1 cliff. You know, rappelling, you know, jumping off backwards over a waterfall tied to a little rope and a heart. What is that? Now, I can't say that my fear of heights got any better. It didn't. I wouldn't say I was healed. No. I know, I realized what happened is I pushed myself through the fear. That's different. I did it. I proved I could do it. I proved I could function in the presence of what felt like terrifying fear. I also learned that I had to go first and go quickly if I was going to go at all. Right? You know. So I learned that stepping off backwards over the edge of a cliff is something I could do if required to. And then, to make things better, as if that wasn't enough, I decided to go zip-lining over many hundreds of feet, way above the rainforest, zipping along many hundreds of feet of line attached to a little pulley and harnessed into a practically invisible thingy dangling above creation at dizzying heights. And several of my zip-lining friends had the same experience. Because you see, there are 7 zip lines, and once you start, that's it. You're finishing. You're going to do it all. So they reported they had the same experience. Like the first 4 or 5 zip lines, they had the experience. This is terrifying. And then something happened. Halfway across line number 6, I realized something. I realized I am completely vulnerable. There's not a thing I can do to control this situation. Yeah. I am utterly defenseless. No matter how hard I clench. And in that moment, I had that experience that some people describe as I surrendered to what was happening. I yielded and I relaxed into the situation as if my mind shifted into the right gear. And I experienced myself in one of those moments, those brief moments in time that lasts much longer than the physical time takes. And I saw myself. And I saw what was happening, and I saw the beauty around me and the majesty of the experience at the same time as I witnessed my vulnerability and fragility, all the while flying through the air like a bird. And I think I understood for a moment what it means to heal my mentality, because in that moment, the fear narratives in my head were gone. I stopped resisting what was happening and what was to happen, and what was left was a serene, focused, quiet mind that I'd like to say, I feel is my natural state of mind. I'd like to say that. So I got to the next platform, and I still had another line to zip along, but I was different. I was changed. I had separated all the events in my mentality, I had stepped away from the terror, and it wasn't because I had dominated it and conquered them, but because I had yielded to something larger that was already and always present. I think what I discovered is what it feels like to experience wholeness and stillness in the middle of a challenging situation, and I'll never forget that. I don't want to forget that. I also learned that my mentality caused more stress than the heights. See, because my mentality was tuned into an exaggerated and unproved future. See, my mind was planning my death. So it's an ongoing learning process. I'm learning this now, that whatever is going on, try also to tune into the wholeness that exists simultaneously. Whatever loss I'm experiencing, or that I'm having, let me also try to tune into the inherent goodness of the universe that stays the same while everything changes around it. Whatever difficulty I'm working through, whatever challenges appear, let me look at it and deal with it. And at the same time, let me tune into also that which has always been in me, continues to be in me, and will always be in me. Because it turns out that what I am tuned into, what I'm focused on, what I'm dwelling in forms my mentality, and from my mentality comes an atmosphere, and that atmosphere affects everything, me, my environment, and everyone around me. In this lovely essay, Dr. Holmes writes, "The mental atmosphere of a home can influence a dog, a cat, or a canary to the extent that they become neurotic when surrounded by unhappiness or criticism." When Kevin and I have excited or energetic conversations, our dog, Cooper, and that's Cooper's little nose over there, he gets all nervous and frenetic, Actually, it's a great relationship building technique. Get a neurotic dog that will not permit arguments. Not that Kevin and I argue, ever. Now, maybe cats and dogs and canaries can't help but be affected by the mental atmosphere that is created around them, but we are being told that we have a choice in the matter. We have some process of selection. Indeed, in the essay, Dr. Holmes says, yeah, we are a broadcasting center, but at the same time, and we are receivers too. Think of all the information that is around us right now, in the air. Radio broadcasts, TV broadcasts, the Wi-Fi bringing to us the internet, all of it invisible but available, present right here, right now. And the good news is we can filter the information by choosing exactly what to tune into. He wrote this during the time when radio was the primary form of entertainment and communication, but it's just as good today. He says, but it does not follow that we must tune into every program being broadcast. When we want to listen to a certain program, we tune our radios to its wavelength. The program already is within the air, in the room, but it does not affect our instrument until we tune into it. I like that. So my question then for myself for the week is, what am I tuned into? See, if I want my broadcast to be filled up with loving kindness and connection and juicy, life-centered creativity and respect and love, I want to make sure I'm tuned into that station. I can't tune into violence and criticism and expect to broadcast love and peace. Once upon a time, in a busy airport, I do a lot of growing in airports because I watch people and I just love it. Once upon a time, in a busy airport, there's this lady sitting there, perfectly serenely reading a book of poetry. And then the announcement came. The flight is delayed a long time. And outrage broke out everywhere. But she barely looked up from her book to take in the announcement and then paused and tuned back into the poetry. While all around her something else was happening. Oh, I watched people and they were tuning into each other's outrage. Woo! It was as if the inclination for outrage was already in them, and all that it needed to spark it into full blossom was that announcement. Set it off. Oh, but not her. No. She was surfing the Poetry Channel. Yes, she was on the same delayed flight. Yes, she was as inconvenienced. Yes, she had places to go. Yes, she wasn't going to be able to eat this, that. But she was not on the angry channel. And I noticed something, that if I focused on her, I felt a certain way. But if I tuned into the people yelling at the airport staff, I felt a different way. Now, in this chapter, Dr. Holmes describes how people who are tuned into aggression feed off of it in each other. And then the exchange of aggression circulates and escalates because they're rebroadcasting what they tuned into, and it gets louder as it's passed around. But there's good news. There's good news. He says, on the other hand, if you are surrounded by people who have resentment and animosity, but you have none, you will not tune into it. Hello, poetry lady. Their vibration bypasses you, and their antagonism does not arouse an equal antagonism in you because you are not broadcasting on the same mental wavelength. I think that explains how people can have different experiences in the same room. We often hear visitors who will come to the center and they will say, oh my goodness, the minute I walked in, I felt at home. And I say to myself, well, I like to think that's because of the vibration of love that we emit, and how it meets the person that is tuned into that love, and I feel all good about it. But in reality, we also hear other stuff. Now, people will say, I came to the center, and you know what? I felt excluded, disconnected, and unwelcomed, as if nobody noticed me. Everybody's just talking to their friends. All in the same room. I had to think about that. What do I bring into the room? Don Miguel Ruiz writes about it in the 4 Agreements. He talks about one of the agreements is don't take things personally. And he says that the real problem is when somebody says something unkind or critical to you, and you already believed it before it was said. It's as if you're already tuned into it before it was said. And then it comes to full blossom, and then you broadcast it. Again, my question for the week, what am I tuned into? Because what I'm tuned into is going to determine how I travel through this world, how I handle what's going on. And I want to ask myself, do I want to feed on, I want to dwell on chaos, reactivity, or that herd thinking, the mob mentality? Or do I want to broadcast a stream of clear, confident, calm, caring, careful, colorful, considerate, compassionate, conscious content? Yeah. And if that's what I want, where's it going to come from? I have to tune into it. However, I do not have to produce it. I do not have to create it. It's in the air already. I have to tune into what is already and always has been present. It's what Dr. Holmes calls the divine reality of life, the original broadcaster. And we are to tune into that, he suggests, frequently and loyally and as often as we can, especially when we don't want to. How do you do that? Well, everybody's got a way, Maybe it's sitting still for a moment, letting things rest. Maybe it's mindfully tuning into the breath to watch it, to let it reconnect you to life. Maybe it's reading poetry. Maybe it's listening to music or performing music. Maybe it's taking some time in nature. Maybe it's helping someone who is struggling. Everybody's got something that they know to do that reconnects them to the divine reality of life. I mean, sometimes when I'm struggling with something, I sit down and I think about the people who love me. That's what I do. And then in a moment, I think about the people I love. And just that thinking stirs up a reconnection. Or sometimes when I'm really struggling with a difficult situation about how to understand it, I just sit and I ask myself, how does the divine see the situation? Everybody's got something that they can do to reconnect them to the original broadcaster. I mentioned last week that early on in my career as a minister, it was during the time of the height of the AIDS epidemic, and I've told this story before, how things were rushing out of control because people were dying very quickly after being diagnosed HIV positive. And a lot of people, including me, were inadvertently tuning into the waves of fear and hopelessness. And a young man in the middle of all that, HIV positive, came to visit me, to work with me. And he started off in our meeting by telling me all the facts, all the numbers, his T-cell count, his this and his that. And after he was done, and because I had read so much, and because I knew so much about the facts, I felt hopeless. And I knew for a fact that I wasn't going to be any good for him. Because what I heard in that meeting taught my mind that there was no hope for him. And so I told him, I said, I'm so sorry, but the truth is I don't think that I'm the right person to work with you because my mind is so fearful and I think this and that. I think I would be doing you a disservice to care. And he interrupted me, and the thing that he said to me next was a turning point in my career. He said, oh, thank God. Thank God. Finally somebody who realizes it's not up to them. And I got it, like that moment on the zip line. I got like my mind clicked into a better gear. He wasn't coming to me to heal him. He wasn't coming to me because he thought I knew something or I could do something better than he could. He was just looking for somebody to partner with him as he went about accepting his vulnerability and relaxing onto the zipline experience of his own life so that he could retune his mentality into the wholeness that was his true nature despite what was going on. What a relief. And it gave me the freedom to be present with him. And together we began to do whatever we needed to do to retune our mentality over and over again to the spirit of wholeness and completeness using whatever method we would think. We started to have fun. And then years later, he moved away. And then years later, I received a package in the mail. It was a magazine in an envelope. When I opened it, there on the cover, he was the featured model. It was a health and fitness and muscle magazine, and there he was doing that. And I don't know what all contributed to his wellness. I don't know what combination of medical science and spiritual practice worked together. I don't know what shifted in him or where he is now. But the experience itself helped me tremendously to give up the idea that I somehow have to produce wholeness to be able to broadcast it. And instead, more humbly, to engage in the practice of tuning into the wholeness that is already and always present. It precedes me. It survives me. I didn't create it. And don't you know, that is the foundation of spiritual mind treatment, our form of affirmative prayer. To start by tuning in to the divine reality, the original broadcaster, to understand its complete nature, rather than trying to make something happen. And that's the theme for next month. We're talking about the technique of spiritual mind treatment. Oh, we're going to have so much fun. We are going to learn how to contemplate the divine. I invite you to breathe in and to sigh as your eyes close, and we take a moment to reflect by letting go of everything and letting our thoughts turn to the divine, recognizing it as the everywhere present power that is inherently good. It is wholeness. I love these words, all powerful and everywhere present. I think about all of the power of spirit present everywhere all of the time. I can sit with that thought and let it saturate my thinking so that I get to the place of understanding I am born of that wholeness and that power. I exist within it. I move in it. I'm no longer referring to external circumstances and matters I know I must deal with my life, but for this moment, inwardly, I'm contemplating my connection with Spirit. I'm celebrating it. I'm letting it cause a realization inside of me that I am in the right place at the right time, that my mind is a beautiful instrument of joy, that my path is one that takes me through the wholeness of creation, and I let this thinking rearrange everything around me. And so it is that I become reestablished in my true identity through this prayer. And as I proceed to participate in my life, I noticed I'm changed now. I've remembered. I've yielded to the truth of my being. I've agreed with the love of my soul. And I fully expect right now to have a changed experience of my journey through life. And this I that I'm speaking of is the I of every person who hears this prayer. I know that something powerful happens when I agree with this truth of my being. And so I yield again and trust the spiritual laws that have always worked, continue to work now, and always shall, by bringing me into alignment with that which I have prayed. And together we say, and so it is.